Going to welcome Arno to the floor and to tell us about his trip from Cape Town to Cairo.
Thank you, Graham. Okay, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. As Graham said, my name is Arno Pienaars. And I'm going to be telling you tonight about my trip from George to Pakwach. So, first I just want to tell you a little bit about myself before I tell you about my trip. So, I've been pretty much nomadic since I've been, you can say, 21 years of age. So that means I've been moving around for the last 14 years. Without staying anywhere in particular, and actually traveling the land of South Africa, trying to meet all the souls that live in the lands. As well as Mozambique. I've lived in Mozambique, I've lived in Tofu. I've worked in the overlanding industry for more than a year, which means that I've traveled a lot through Zimbabwe, Swaziland, Lesotho. And in my spare time, I'm the kind of guy that likes to jump into a bus, go to Zimbabwe, go to Malawi, just get out, just explore around and actually see, you know, what all the tribes are like, what all the people are like, and I also believe that we have to find other people to find ourselves in this reality, to put yourself back together, because we all have a crucial piece to the puzzle, and we learn from each other through observation and getting to know each other. So anyways, last year around April I finished working at Spirit Fest, which took place at the Wellbeing Sanctuary near Sedgefield in the Garden Route. And finishing up Spirit Fest, I was a bit confused as to what to do. At the time, I was living near Nature's Valley in a tent in the forest, taking care of a lady's land, and I was quite over that area, and I felt like I needed to do something fresh. Nothing really was going for me in the professional department per se, like getting a job and all that. So after Spirit Fest, a lady in a Land Rover took me for a drive to Graafrenet, a long drive, and she was looking for land to occupy, because part of my mission is finding a home base for the long term to practice sovereignty and self-sustainability, taking care of myself in the long-term future. So I'm always helping other people find bases, and I've got a network through the whole country, which means that it's pretty easy for me to pitch up anywhere and set up camp, as the pioneers used to do in the days of old, getting water, you know, burying a hole to take a ship, and you know, just winging it and communal living. I've been involved with the Ubuntu liberation movement in the past with Michael Tallinger. I was part of the first sustainable movement in Waterval-Hoofin. I've lived in Waterval-Hoofin for many years, and I've physically located more ancient stone circles than anybody alive in Mpumalanga. I've walked hundreds of kilometers through all the mountains of South Africa, and if you look at this map that I draw here, all these movements that you see has been in the last, say, 7, 8 years that I've moved through all the lands of, You can say Southern Africa and as well as Eastern Africa. In 2020, sorry, I got caught in Malawi in lockdown, which means that I had to make Malawi my home for almost a year. And I stayed in Mzuzu. And during 2020, sorry, the borders opened up for the first time, I think it was October. And at the time, Magufuli was president of Tanzania, and we can all remember how popular Magufuli was because he announced on the news that COVID-19 is a scam. A president announcing that on head news. And when I heard this at the time, living in Malawi, I thought, what a cool guy. What an amazing guy, like someone's talking the truth. And he famously announced on the news, guys, the PCR tests are showing the goats have COVID-19, it's showing the papayas have COVID-19. Guys, this is a bullshit story. Stop following this. He said, my country will be a free country, everything went on as normal. When I lived in Malawi, everything went on as normal. I was never in a lockdown. I managed to leave South Africa safely just before it all came down crashing for everyone living in South Africa. At the time, 2020, I was just following my heart. Something told me, jump in a bus, go live in Malawi for some time. Before I did go to Malawi, I was in Nampula. So, end of 2019, I took a plane to Nampula and I explored around a bit, and eventually I met a friend of mine in Zomba, Blantyre in the south of Malawi. I made a friend and he was from Mzuzu. I made a contact, and the next thing I know, I was renting a room in Mzuzu for 400 Rand a month, living very cheaply, having good friends around me, good people, and I lived in Malawi during that time, and that's when I made all these movements through Tanzania. So I actually went to Dar es Salaam. I didn't like that. I went to live on Lake Victoria, a place called Mwanza, spent a few weeks there. Noticed everyone's got dementia on Lake Victoria because of all the gold mines around the lake, and it's one of the most polluted lakes on the planet. So one thing you find around all these lakes in Africa, not many people will tell you, is a lot of people are batshit crazy about all the great lakes. And this is because water is contaminated via mines. You must remember all these great Rift Valley lakes, they also run along Congo, all these borders where a lot of minerals are located. And as you can imagine in Africa, there's not a lot of, principles of cleaning up the mines. So every time you arrive at a lake, you just notice everyone's alcoholics, everyone's out of it. It's like this serious energy that you find around the Great Lakes of Africa. It's usually an alcoholic energy. It's usually not the place to be. People have an imagination of how it is. Tonight I'm going to give you a bit of a reality about what is actually going on in Africa. But anyways, that's a bit of pre-Cape to Cairo background. I'm just going to get out of the light here. So we're going to go back to finishing Spirit Fest. So I went back to Durban after finishing up with the lady, trying to find this lady land. Ended up back in Durban, and I had a dream in Durban. And in the dream, a friend who I met near Kruger Mountains in the Langkloof Valley, this friend came to me, older man, a man I look up very much. He told me I need to go to Brandberg Mountain in the dream. Brandberg Mountain is obviously in the north of Namibia. So I woke up in the morning and I was asking the creator for guidance about what to do. And when the information came through, I had my bicycle already, which I bought, just a few, about a year before this happened. I already bought my bicycle. And after I bought my bicycle, I did 3 trips in South Africa to get fit. Alright? So I did one journey from Toes River all the way through Cedarburg towards Langebaan, and I went for a sacred site in Posmasburg. There's a place called West Coast National Park, West Coast National Park is just here. And there is a sacred Stonehenge site that not a lot of people know about in West Coast National Park. And okay, that's Gamkalberg, that's another story. But basically I did a 700-kilometer journey to Langebaan back to Toes River. Then I went on another journey from Toes River to Knysna. It took me about 600 kilometers, 700 kilometers, 7 days. And it's worth noting that through these journeys you're bikepacking. So you're carrying everything you own. You're carrying your tent, your mats, your food, and you're basically winging it and you're practicing stealth camping. Stealth camping, it means that pretty much that. You gotta sometimes jump over fences, you know, trespass, get over people's fences, hide somewhere, get some sleep. Because as you know, in South Africa we've got a little bit of a problem. We've got too much fences in South Africa because of all the livestock and because of the crime. The entire land is gridlocked. So it's not that easy to practice this kind of thing. In South Africa, you kind of gotta break the law, and sometimes people understand. They tell you jump over my gate. You can go sleep in the valley. That's fine. I can see you're a criminal, because the fences are about keeping animals in. It's not about really keeping criminals out. So I'm a big believer of, you know, free man of the land. If there's any heritage somewhere, we should all be able to access that. And that's what I live and practice. And for me, doing the Cape to Cairo mission was the ultimate form of freedom. Because you're on a bicycle, you can go wherever you like, you can sleep wherever you like, you don't need to pay for accommodation. You can make a fire wherever you want to make a fire. You just need to take a pot with you, and that's that. It really takes a lot of the complication out of the way. So on the 3rd of May, after I got this dream, I took a bus back to Sedgefield. Before I left Sedgefield after the festival, I had left my bike there already with a friend, with the idea that I'm going to come back, I'm going to start some sort of journey on my bike. But at Spirit Fest, I didn't know yet what I was getting myself into. But I have to say, at Spirit Fest, I met a group of people who were fresh out of Egypt. And these people, I could see, they had a sparkle in their eyes, something special was going on with them. They had the blessing of meditating in the Sphinx. Now, for those of you who don't know, you can't even get to touch the Sphinx around the pyramids. There's a whole barrier around it. No one's even allowed to go close. Never mind to get inside. You probably got to pay at least 20,000 US to get inside of the Sphinx. So that's a total no-go area. But after I met these people at the festival, I told them, I looked them in the eyes and I told them, I don't know how, but I'm gonna get myself in Egypt somehow. And in the back of my head, I knew I had the bicycle, but at the time, I didn't really, trust myself. I didn't really have that faith. Oh yeah, Arno, you're gonna cycle to Egypt. To me, it was like still all a dream. It was just like all fantasy in my head. And also have to say that I'm not the kind of guy who's got savings in the bank. My lifestyle is something that I pull off without a lot of money. I've been sleeping in a tent for the last decade, all right, more than in houses. So I've chosen to do this already a long while ago. It's been a big sacrifice in my life to live like this, and I've reached a point now where I'm heading back to normality, because I have made a big sacrifice for a whole lot many years to achieve these feats and to find all the souls occupying all the lands, which I could never have done if I decided to, choose the matrix life and anchor myself somewhere. So on the 3rd of May, I pitched up in Sedgefield. I had a friend who was a bit like me. At the time, he was sleeping somewhere in the dunes. He was also stealth camping. He had a little campsite in an illegal area, which was actually part of, you know, parks or camp nature. Spent a few days with this guy and managed to get ready for my trip. And I bought all the ties. You know, you got to get all these rubber bands, and you got to get sunglasses. You got to get some sunscreen. There's a whole lot of small things that you need to take with. You know, tubes, tools, tent, all these little small things. So I spent a few days to get everything in order. And then the morning after the Wild Oats market, I think it was on a Sunday. No, it was on a Monday. Because now, the funny thing that happened, when I started my journey, I took a hitch from Sedge to George with my bicycle on the back of the ladies' buggy. Because I don't like to cycle the highways. So through most of my trip, I've did my best to dodge all the major highways and all the major traffic, because it's not fun breathing in petrol all day. So I got to George, and my friend told me, "No, Arno, come on, hitchhike with me from George to Duisseldorp. I don't want to hitchhike alone." Told him, "No, I have to cycle my mission. I can't hitchhike anymore because now I'm going from south to north. I really need to do this on the bicycle." So I decided to cycle Montague Pass from George. I don't know if any of you guys know Montague Pass.
Yeah.
It's not a pass anymore.
No.
It's a riverbed. It's been washed away in 2024, April. And I was in May, and I didn't know about the pass that's been washed away. So my first day cycling to Montague Pass, I didn't cycle far. Pretty soon I was faced with a whole bunch of boulders in front of me, and I literally had to push my bicycle for 25 kilometers to get out of the pass. It was my hardest day of my whole trip. So I end up pushing halfway through the pass. I'm in the middle of the pass, got nowhere to go, no flat land next to me, and I look down there in the pass, and I'm like, geez, it's like one kilometer down in the riverbed, there is a place to sleep. So I had to put my bicycle next to the road, pack my backpack, start walking down to the pass, get to the pass, put my tent up, middle of the night, a huge windstorm comes through. Can't sleep, tent is going down. I put my tent down, I just put my mattress in the middle of the riverbed, looking up to the stars. The wind is thrashing like big time. Didn't sleep most of that night. Next morning, walk back up to the pass, get on my bicycle, not on my bicycle, next to my bicycle. I push my bicycle out the rest of the way. While I'm pushing, a lot of oldies come walking past me on the pass, checking me, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "No, I'm just going north, that's all." I don't tell them much. But they walk past me, they go to Herald. I'm on my way to Herald, they stop at a cafe there. Eventually, like midday, I get out of the pass. I get to the cafe, and these people are listening to my stories, and they're very happy to see me. And next thing, they're buying me scones, and they're buying me coffees, and it seems to happen a lot when people hear your story, and they kind of take their hats off to you, take photos. And then when I was in the cafe, I get a newspaper and I read the whole story about the flood, which happened a month earlier. And I'm like, whoa. And the next thing, the people at the cafe tell me, "Hey, Arno, you know what happened yesterday while you were sleeping in the pass?" I'm like, "What?" They're like, "A big building in George collapsed, like 100 people lost their lives." And I'm like, "What?" Same day I went through George, starting my trip on the first day, was the day that all those people died in George through that building collapse. That was a funny coincidence for me that this happened on the same day that I started my trip. I'm like, okay, interesting. And I carry on from Herald. There's another pass straight from the Herald, straight to Duisseldorp. I don't know if any of you guys have ever driven that. It's not a very well-known mountain pass. But when I reached Duisseldorp, I slept in Duisseldorp for a night. I spent some time with my friend Joseph, who's the elder there. He's one of the Rastafarian elders in Duisseldorp. There's another one in Neisner, very good people, very open hearts. They take care of you. And I made good friends with Joseph. Then I left Duiselsdorp. So you can see I put Montetjie past Duiselsdorp. And then from Duiselsdorp I cycled through Meidingspoort. Right? I get out of Meidingspoort, I get to Klaarstrom. Klaarstrom is just on the other side of Meidingspoort. I find a big church there on the corner as you get to Klaarstrom. I jump over the gate, I put my bicycle behind the church, I find a nice corner behind the church, I put my tent up, I sleep behind the church on that evening. Alright, then the next day I start cycling from there, and then I was on my way to Beaufort West, and that's a long stretch. I think that was something like 250 kilometers, and I did ride here, so I did about 900 kilometers total in South Africa, and sometimes I did hitch. I did not cycle the whole thing by myself, and I ended up in Pakwach. So I did George, but this was my route. I'm going to go through it once. I went from George all the way through the Groot Karoo. So it was this one here. It was van Wyksdorp, Carnarvon, Pienaars, Cairo, Nakop. But from Cairo to Nakop, I went from Riemvasmark through one of the most intense canyons you can imagine, a place called Suikersteek, one of the driest areas in South Africa. It took me 3 days to move through this area towards Nakop, with only 2 chances to get water. And then the Groot Karoo was fun. Not a lot of people. The stealth camping was nice because you could kind of just sleep next to the road and not really worry much about anyone who's going to find you or anything like that. But I'll never forget, it was somewhere around Carnarvon, when I was cycling between Carnarvon and Van Wyksdorp, and sometimes you meet farmers on the way and they stop for you because like they never see cyclists there. They stop and they ask you what you're doing, where you're going. And if you just be open with them and tell them like, okay, this is what I'm doing, I am looking for a place to sleep, do you know of anything? This is kind of a situation, so that people can understand that you're on a serious mission, and they can see it in your eyes when you have been, cycling incessantly day in and day out. We're not joking. 75 kilometers a day, guys. That was the average, day in and day out. It took me 127 days to reach Pakwach. 127 days. And my route went through Uganda, past Lake Albert, past Tanzania, past Lake Tanganyika, past Lake Mweru, past Lake Bangweru. I basically traced the Congolese panhandle, the panhandle of Zambia. And then I went through Lusaka, Livingston, Caprivi Strip, Kabanga River, Rundu, Windhoek, Keetmanshoop, and then back to Nakop. But back to Carnarvon, I meet a farmer on the way, and he tells me, Arno, I've got a nice place for you there in Carnarvon. This old piece of land in the open, in the middle of nowhere, and he's got someone who's taking care of this property for him. And eventually I get there, and this whole place was a booby trap, because devil's thorns is something that you find a lot in the Karoo. Now, I don't know if you probably know devil's thorns. Devil's thorns with bicycles doesn't work. You go over once and you got a puncture and you need to fix. And this guy's land, where he directed me, the whole land was full of devil's thorns. Every centimeter was full of devil's thorns. So as I arrived at this guy's gate, all my wheels were buggered. And as I turned off of the tar road, all my wheels were punctured. At least I had at least 3 tubes with me. And I was like cursing this guy, why is this guy telling me to come here? Maybe he should have known about this issue with the thorns. But it's fine, you know. I fixed up my bicycle that night. I changed the tires, and I had to carry the bicycle out of the property back to the main road. And it wasn't the first time I had punctures. I definitely had punctures around Pienaars, around the Orange River. Trying to struggle to sleep somewhere off the road always proved to be an issue. As soon as you walk your bicycle off the road, devil's torn once. But on the bright side, I had the special tire repair gel that they use for the trucks. And I found that once I put this stuff into my tires, it was kind of self-repair. Even if more thorns would come, it would kind of stay put and the tires would still be okay. And I also had a guy, so there was a few miracles that happened for me during this trip. And this is the actual, you know, the story that I want to get into. How magic started happening in my life when I decided that I'm going to Cairo. And a few other people have also actually confirmed this for me. When a human being decides to go to Cairo and you solidly make that decision, magic starts transpiring in your life in ways that you cannot explain. And my first part of the story was when I announced I'm going to Cairo, I had no money, right? After I announced on Facebook I'm going to Cairo, several people did send me money. Several people told me, Arno, I know you got to do this. I'm going to give you a bit of cash, you know, just simple cash, just for food. You know, just like 3K to survive my journey through South Africa and be able to afford food to eat on the way. Never mind money for accommodation. I spent zero for accommodation my whole trip through Africa. I bush camped all the way, right? Here and there, I had to sleep in accommodation to rest, just to recover, because you also don't rest so well in your tent in the middle of nowhere, where you're kind of hiding and you can't be caught. Now, I tried sleeping in African villages. Maybe we can also carry on with the slideshow. So these are the tiger eyes from Orange River. If you know your country, you know. They come out of the Orange River. I found a whole lot of them. But anyways, by the time I reached Uppington, my bicycle was broken. My cargo rack was broken because I had a cheap Chinese cargo rack to carry my bags. And I had already used it several times. There's the aluminium one. So I managed to track down a guy in Uppington after I cycled from Pienaars. Now this was not even part of my journey. This was like detours. And I tracked down a guy in Uppington who did aluminium welding. And aluminium welding is a very professional work and people charge a lot of money for it. And I found this man in Uppington, very hard to find him, and you're my only hope. And he did the whole job for me, and at the end of the job he looked me in the eyes and he took his time and he said, you don't have to pay, don't worry. Just go on your mission, it's fine. He could have charged me easily 3.5K, which I didn't even have. For some reason, he let me go. And I cycled from Uppington. The only thing I could buy was a tub of protein powder because, you know, you've got to be quite focused on what you're going to eat on the way. And I knew that I had to fix my bike up because most of the way to the Karoo, I pretty much only had these 3 gears here. I didn't have these gears. So I had to change my drive chain. I had a drive chain ordered from Pretoria, and I did all my homework in Uppington, finished up my bike, and then I went from Pienaars to Ugrabis Falls, from Ugrabis Falls to Rimvasmark, and then cycle past all the rose quartz mines there near Rimvasmark. Saw these huge boulders of rose quartz. I know exactly where to get them one day. Then eventually I got to the Namibian border, and I slept there also for 2 days, and even from the border I went back to Uppington again, back to Norfolk border again, to sort a few more things out of my bicycle. Then eventually I crossed the border, and it was my first day in Namibia. And I'll never forget, when I first entered Namibia, my first day, a big truck that was driving towards the border lost a huge load of medjool dates. Right? At this point, my money was finished already. I was trying to do a Back a Buddy campaign, trying to do crowdfunding, but money wasn't coming in yet. And I literally only had oats in my bags and not much was going for me. I cycled into Namibia. The first day, I was in need. I had good intentions. I just carried on believing. The next thing, a huge cargo of dates all across the highway. All across the highway. I couldn't believe it. I'm cycling 40 kilometers suddenly and I'm picking up a date and I'm tasting. I'm like, whoa, this is the same stuff in the Woolworths. I'm eating as many dates as possible. I'm filling up all my bags with dates. Another guy comes, he's like, what's happening? I'm like, no, today's our day. It's a godsend. He's like, wait, I'm getting my wheelbarrow. Brings his wheelbarrow, and he's like, and he told me, guess what? Just the other day, there was a springbok dead springbok on the fence. He says also, you're so happy for that springbok. Because in those areas, you get what you get. It's the desert. So I get all my dates and I carry on cycling, and the next thing I'm cycling to Arnho. So I'm going from this back here, coming Nakop, Arnho, and then Karasburg. So I get to Karasburg, but let me not lie, halfway to Karasburg, a hunting party from South Africa, they pick me up, they take me half the way between Nakop to Karasburg. Because it's quite a boring route, there's not much to see there, everything is flat. And then I didn't spend much time in Karasburg. I cycled immediately out of Karasburg, went to sleep in one of those drains. Those drains next to the road. There's a nice picture earlier with the drain next to the road. Ah, exactly. There's a bit back, yeah, exactly like that. So when you sleep like this, no one can see on the road, not even a truck. And the roads are very quiet. It's actually very cozy, very comfortable. This is actually better than sleeping in a tent in the bush somewhere. It's actually, it just feels like solid. There's a solid wall around you. And I always do pee around my campsites. For those of you that don't know, the smell of human scent is the most scary thing for any animal in the bush. So that's the way you kind of take care of yourself. And then I cycled from Karasburg towards Keetmanshoop. And halfway there, I passed the turn-off to Fish River Canyon. I'd never been there, but I said to myself, it's more than a 100 kilometer detour. Let me rather just carry on going north. So I skipped Fish River Canyon. Next thing, I stopped at a farm store near Notre Dame. Notre Dame is just there on the way to Keetmanshoop. So now we're around here somewhere. Stop at the cafe plus farm store. I meet a German couple there. And the next thing they tell me, put your bike on the roof of our car. We're going to drive you to Fish River Canyon. You go enjoy Fish River Canyon, and then you take it from there. I thought to myself, why not? Go check out Fish River Canyon. It's where the Congolese plate and the African plate is like where they're separating. So this is also like a crucial part of Africa to go and visit. So they took me there and they left me there. So I had to cycle again, like 100 kilometers back to where I came from. I had another puncture, another scare on the way, but I was prepared, fixed up my bike. And then I reached Notre Dame. We're around here somewhere. I go into another farm store, and I found that it's always good to stop somewhere where a lot of people stop, because you meet people, and when you're on a journey like that, that's what it's all about. You meet people and you stop at places where you can meet people. Otherwise, what are you actually doing? There's these connections to make for you on the way, and I've made a lot of special connections. So I get to Notre Dame, I notice, this is where all the date farms are. And I check My dates are finished already from the and I check there's a farm and all the workers are coming out of the farm. And I had this whole bag of garlic from Loxton. I didn't tell you the story. When I passed Loxton, a garlic farmer gave me a whole bag of garlic at the Windpomp. Those of you who know Loxton, there's a very famous bar. It's called the Windpomp. That's where you go to, and when you're in Loxton, that's where you go. Because there's a very famous bartender who works there. I forgot his name. Too many names to remember. But he was a garlic farmer. And he gave me a bag of garlic. And in Loxton, at the bar where he was working, there was a couple of ladies who also heard my story. And they popped me around 500 bucks. They were from the garden route somewhere. So they popped me 500 bucks out of nowhere. I didn't ask for no money. I was just totally honest with an open heart. This is my story, this is what I'm doing. Don't know if I'm going to make it, but you know, I can do with all the support I can do on the way. And then back to Namibia, now to Dam. I get more dates from these workers. I do an exchange. I gave them some garlic. They gave me a whole bag of dates again. So I had good food again. And then in Rotterdam, there's also a farm store where it's like next to the date farm. And I go to the farm store and I meet a Namibian lady called Leonie Borsel. I'll never forget her. I met her in the farm store. She immediately told me, I'm cooking for you tonight. Come to my house. And it was really late, and I'm thinking, yeah, I don't want to struggle in the bush on a fire. Why not? I can get to know the people in the area. So she took me to a place, and we carried on talking, and she told me, you know what, I always wanted to do what you're doing. So you're inspiring me a lot now through meeting you. You're making me feel like I want to do this. She also had some bicycles in her garage, and she's also been dreaming up of doing a mission like this one day. And then she said, you know, I've got this savings in my closet somewhere. I don't need it now. I'd like to support you on this. And then, this is a miracle. She popped me an envelope. There was at least 2K in this envelope. And all these things were always coming to me the whole time. Because I just made the decision, now I'm going to Cairo. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I've made the solid decision, do or die, I'm going to carry on going. So Leonie sorted me out with some cash. She drove me back to the Orange River to go and meet her family. We did an Orange River kayaking with her, and on the Orange River, she drove me back all the way to Rotterdam. And then I cycled to Keetmanshoop. I get to Keetmanshoop. Then there's a highway between Keetmanshoop and Windhoek. Very busy highway. I said, no, I don't need to cycle that. So I took a taxi from Keetmanshoop to Windhoek. On the trailer of the taxi, the guys did not tie my bicycle on correctly. By the time I get to Windhoek, one of my gears is broken. And I just get reminded how aware you always have to be about the little small things that can go wrong. I get into Windhoek, an old military buddy of my father, he hosted me in Windhoek, old friend of my father. While I was in Windhoek, I had to go fix my bicycle again. I go to the bicycle shop, minor issues, I fix my bicycle. At the bicycle shop, they give me 2 tires, 2 rubber tires. They say they don't need them. I'm like, okay, cool. I tie the rubber tires to my cargo. I get some more tubes, you know. And from Windhoek, now we're here, I start cycling to Rundu. And that was at least 900 kilometers from Windhoek. Oh. And I'm just getting a bit hot. Yeah, that's somewhere in Namibia. That's the Orange River. So I'm winning it. Hey?
The German couple over there.
That's their car. And that's my bicycle. I tied the bicycle on top. They were like, no, not possible. I said, yeah, it's possible. Tied it on. There's the quiver trees, the Grobbies Falls. I I'm not sure if it's the other folder. You can start getting into the other one. But there's Namibia, Okahanja. So when I cycled to Rundu, I think Rundu was after Grootfontein. You get Grootfontein first, then here where the big meteorite is. Then also on the way to Grootfontein, you hitch 100 kilometers with a truck to Grootfontein. I got to Grootfontein. The truck driver who took me to Grootfontein was an Afrikaner. Now obviously Namibia's got a lot of Afrikaners. But the truck driver, people are so compassionate in Namibia. He actually linked me up with a guy in Grootfontein to go and sleep in a big office, in a big mechanical warehouse. So I was sleeping in an office in Grootfontein. And I slept in Grootfontein for about 2 nights. And then I started cycling towards Rundu. And this is long distance cycling. This is cycling the whole day. But I started noticing, after Grootfontein, I started noticing, okay, I'm getting into Africa now. You know? Obviously I started noticing things are starting to get very black. Not Bushmen anymore, not Afrikaners anymore. I'm starting to get into the real Africa. And that's when things started becoming a bit tougher. Because finding a place to sleep, not so easy. Because people are very widespread in Africa. People don't just live in one place. People live widespread. So I think it's the other folder.
Yeah.
So let me just go through this now. So here we are. So I cycled all the way to the Caprivi strip, and then I hitched another truck towards Katima Mulilo. Katima Mulilo is in Zambia, not Zambia, it's still in Namibia. You can't see it here, but it's around here somewhere. Then, by the time I got to Katima Mulilo, this was now 2 weeks later, you know, after Leonie and getting a bit of support from her. There was a time when I was in Grootfontein at the Pick n Pay. I actually befriended a lady from Katima Mulilo. So I started noticing that I would meet people from my next destinations. And I clicked that if I manage to talk to them and connect to them, I can start connecting myself and linking myself up to my next destinations, because people know people everywhere and it all comes together. So in Grootfontein, a lady told me, I've got a place in Katima Mulilo, you can come and sleep, I'll help you out. This lady owned a butchery in Katima Mulilo. Wonderful African lady. So by the time I reached Katima Mulilo, this lady offered me at least 5 kilograms of biltong when I got there. And that's a godsend. You really got good protein, and this protein, it lasted me until Lake Mweru. That's in the north of Zambia, and by the time I got in the north of Zambia, I was over the biltong. I was giving it to the kids on the beaches. They had a bit too much nitrates for me and all those preservatives and all that. But this lady linked me up in Katima Mulilo, and I cycled out of Katima Mulilo, got into Zambia, into the south of Zambia. So we are here now. You can see here crossed over. Then, you know, I didn't know Zambia that well, and there's a lake called Lake Itezi in Zambia, and I thought, okay, cool. I'm going to cycle to Lake Itezi. I'm going to try to take a straight line there through the middle of Zambia. And Lake Itezi is here somewhere. But I cycled about 150 kilometers into the middle of Zambia from Katima Mulilo. And out of that 150 kilometers, I started battling with sand. So half of that was sand, and 75 kilometers again of pushing through serious sand. And there was an old train station that I found. Now, like, I can't remember what's the name of this place, but we'll look it up after the talk. But basically, I cycled myself into deep trouble. Went into the middle of Zambia somewhere, and it's just sand, the same like Namibia, the south of Zambia. It's very dry. There's droughts going on. And I came into Zambia on a Sunday, and the first thing I noticed was people everywhere, walking everywhere. Every 2 meters, there's someone walking on the road, and especially on a Sunday, everyone's wasted. I don't know what it is about Sundays in Africa, but everyone drinks. Especially Zambia is the most alcoholic country I've ever come across in my life. Every single small town you go to, there's drunkenness going on, there's naughtiness going on, there's people shouting on you, people taking chances. And all my gut was telling me, don't sleep at a village. But I had to try my first night when I was in Zambia. I befriended some people in the village. The next thing, the chief was there. I could see the chief was drunk out of his mind, because I was very uncomfortable being around this chief. But I said, let me have a bit of compassion, let's spend a bit of time with these people. And the evening, I make coffee for them, and we spend some time together. And the chief was very adamant, I'm not allowed to sleep outside the camp. I have to sleep in the camp. He's like telling me how I should do it. And I wanted to sleep outside of the camp, but something in my gut was telling me, no, I'm not safe here. But I sleep inside the camp anyways. My first night in Zambia, and I was like, my African experience is starting. That first night, I did not sleep, because that chief who was drunk, he started trying to suffocate his wife in the hut next to where I was sleeping in the tent. And I was hearing all this going on. The next thing I'm like, the TIA, this is Africa, here we go again. And get out of my tent and kick down the door. I get into this house with the chief and his wife in the middle of their little charade. The chief froze like a mummy when I got in. He was so scared. And all he could do was look down like a little boy and I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And he walked out of his hut, he walks to another hut, he goes to sleep. I was ready to do something to him, because I've come across a lot of Africans beating women in Africa. This is happening big time. I'm going to open up a bit about the culture, what's going on. It's a popularity contest in Africa to have children. You are very low in the hierarchy of social class in Africa if you do not have kids. Women are looked down upon when they do not have kids. The pressure is huge in Africa to have as many children as possible and to start as early as possible. This is the part of the culture. Wealth for them relates to fertility, to children. Obviously, it doesn't lead to the greatest of consequences when you do move through the continent, because everywhere you go, you come across hundreds, thousands of children unattended by their parents, doing whatever the hell they want, all kinds of mischief. Every street corner is selling the cheapest alcohol spirits you can imagine. It's backyard stuff. There's no police anywhere, ever. You're never going to find no police. Imagine how you feel like if you're moving through all these lands. No one's going to help you if you're in shit. There's no one to call if you're in shit. You got to make sure you're never in shit. You really got to be pinpoint. You can't get yourself in trouble. So that first night was a very valuable lesson to me. I had to go through that trial first. And then the next day, the lady, she walked me out of the village, the one who got beaten. She walked me out of the village, very embarrassed and ashamed of herself. And I told her, thank you. I know now that I can't trust you people anymore, that I've got to follow my own light and my own guidance. And I told her, don't put yourself through this life with this man. I wish you can get yourself another life. Okay, goodbye. And I went on my way. And then the next evening, when I started going into Zambia, I had to stealth camp. But even in the middle of a national park, difficult to find a secret spot to sleep. Because remember, you also got to take water into contention. You've got to know where's water nearby. Very dry area, drought-stricken, can't just sleep anywhere. And I set up a secret campsite, and it was near a baobab tree somewhere. This was somewhere around here. And I'm like, I set up my camp, and the next thing, cows, cattle. When cattle are near, you know, oh shit, there's people here. And cattle are around, and at the end of the day, Africans need to go and walk around and find where the cattle is. And I'm going to have the best hiding place. Eventually, some young girl found me in the middle of nowhere, where you're never going to find a white man, ever. You can imagine how scared she was in a way, finding this big guy with a huge beard. And I know myself when I'm in my mojo, I come across as a very rough and tough man with a very big beard. And the lady asked me, "What are you doing here?" And I looked her in the eyes and I asked her, "What are you doing?" Just try to play innocent. You ask me what I'm doing here, you tell me what you're doing here. And she's like, "No, but I'm from here." And I'm like, "Well, I'm also from here. Here I am. I'm from here." And she's like, "No, you got to come sleep in our village. You're not allowed to sleep here." And I'm like, "Oh shit, I don't want to go to the village. I don't want to be part of these social dynamics in the village. I'm already sleep deprived from the previous night." And I tell this lady, "Sorry, no, I'm not going to come and sleep in your village." And she's like, and she starts acting like this is a problem, because they start freaking out. This is the issue. Like, for them, it's like no go. No, you can't sleep outside. For them, sleeping outside means tomorrow you're going to be dead. This is what they just automatically believe. I know there's no lions around. There's 0 lions in that area. Leopards, yes, you find them everywhere, but leopards are not man-eaters, essentially. So I basically told her, "You know what? No, I'm going. You go. Don't worry, I just acted, I'm not going to sleep here. I'll pick up my bicycle." I'm like, "No, I'm going to carry on going," just to make her see that I'm going. Because the word spreads like a wildfire through the village. And the next thing, everyone wants to see where you sleep, everyone wants to get something from you. You end up paranoid. You end up very paranoid for most of the journey. Because you are sticking out like a sore thumb, you probably don't belong there. So I managed to find a sleeping spot not far from that location where this lady caught me, and the next day I carried on with my mission. And I carried on the whole next day, and to my surprise, I found an old railway line in the middle of Zambia that's actually running from Livingstone. It's running due west into the middle of nowhere. And like I found these, now this is a railway that just runs once a week. And when I found the railway, I found these people with these little wagons on the railway who push the wagons over a railway. And I don't know if anyone ever seen that. But they were transporting people on these wagons. And I had to walk on a railway line with my bicycle's wheel on the track, on the straight track, for 25 kilometers. I had to walk, focusing on this line for 25 kilometers with my whole bicycle loaded with cargo. It was the longest day of my life, guys. I don't think you can imagine what that means for your mind to focus on a line for about 12 hours, walking along a railway. I found 2 other guys doing the same thing. They were coming in the opposite direction, walking with their bicycles, checking me out. When I got to the railway, people had informed me there's a train coming the next day. To my luck, Only once a week the train is coming. At the time I was there, I was in luck, the train was coming that next day. Mulanga, that's what it's called. So that's on the railway, that's on the way to the train station. And I had to walk to the train station, and eventually I got there late in the afternoon, completely out of it, buying energy drinks, you know, trying to refuel. I had to pitch up my tent next to the railway. And there's a lot of hustle and bustle going on because, you know, these railways, Mulubezi, that's what it's called, there it is. It's called Mulubezi. 162 kilometers from Livingston. So I found this railway in the middle of nowhere that's super old, and it's probably the British who built it a very long time ago. And I picked up my tent there. Yes, but yeah, by the train station, big parties going. Big speakers booming. The party's not ending, guys. The music's playing until tomorrow, until the train comes. And I'm already, you know, from the last few nights, sleep deprived, a little bit paranoid, you know, hearing people in the distance from my tent, wondering if they got a problem with me or not. I'm at the railway station, and now there's big party going on. 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, I start losing my mind because the music is just loud and it's banging. So I walk straight to the bar in this dodgy, dirty area where a bunch of monsters are getting drunk. And I go straight to the speaker and I plug out the speaker. There's just like this white guy who's not even from there, and the Africans are not happy with me.
Surprise.
Bad idea.
You know, they're like, this is Zambia. This is our land. You don't do this yet. You know, they're all standing around me in a circle. And I had this other one black guy, he was with me. He was like, oh, let's take that. We'll do this. And I contemplated it, but I'm not a very violent man. I can be if I have to be, but I wouldn't just, you know, get into a fight if I don't have to. So these guys who were drunk, they were like, they wanted it. Because this is like, you know, people enjoy it when they're drunk. So I said, no, it's fine. You guys carry on your music. I go to my tent, I wait for the train. The next morning, the train came, and the train got a big compartment for everyone's bicycles, and I load my bicycle, and I get into the train, and the train takes me to Livingston, and then I found a backpacker in Livingston, spent about 2 nights there, and then at the backpacker I met a Jewish woman. And when this Jewish woman met me, the next day, before I left Livingston to go up north to Lusaka, she gave me a big kiss out of nowhere. Just like a good luck kiss, and it was very special for me because she kind of acknowledged me that I'm on a mission, and that like, oh, poor old you haven't had love in a long time. Gave me a make-out session, and I was good to go. I was on the highway with a big... And the next thing I meet a guy who's been driving from Durban with a truck. From my hometown, these guys have been driving from Durban. I'm like, yeah, I'm also from Durban, guys. And they're like, really? I'm like, yo, we're going to Lusaka. I'm like, really? I'm like, yo, I need some help to Lusaka. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah. Put your bike on top of the truck. So we put our bike on top of the truck, tied the bike on, and the guys gave me a lift to Lusaka. On the way to Lusaka, the one guy in the truck, there was like 5 black guys in the truck. The one guy in the truck told me, come and sleep at my house in Lusaka. But the guy was in the ghetto, he was in the township, in the middle of Lusaka. And you know, I went to sleep at this township in Lusaka, spent a bit of time there. By the time I left Lusaka, I was sick. Because there's no recycling happening in Lusaka, all the plastic's being burnt. Every street corner you go, plastic's being burnt. I managed to breathe in enough plastic to get sick. And I cycled a little bit out of Lusaka, and my birthday came up, and I very quickly met someone on another property, had a place to sleep. Someone made me fish near Lusaka, had a good dinner, and then the next morning, leaving Lusaka, I got another hitchhike. So I basically skipped a little part here. Here we are, and I skipped this part. And I got out of the truck just here by, where was it? I think it's Kapiri and Poshi. But on the bottom of the panhandle, I got out. Because my big part of my mission was cycling the old African slave route, which is going past the Great Lakes. You know, Lake Mweru, Lake Bangwelu, this Bangwelu here, Mweru here. So Mweru was a big mission for me to reach Mweru. Because Lake Mweru and a place called Nshilenge was the center of the old Arab slave trade. Meaning that slaves were caught all over these areas here in Congo. They were taken here. Even the Zambia, all the slaves that were caught in all these regions, they were taken to the center of the slave trade, either shipped to Zanzibar, or they were shipped along the Congo River, all the way to the West Atlantic, where they were either shipped to the Americas. But this was the central part of what was going on. So part of my mission was also to go there with my light energy and clear the energies in all these areas. Because the one thing that you notice about Africa when you spend a lot of time on the ground, you can feel this, it feels like you're in a war. There's too many years of traumas and nonsense that has happened. Energy is very dense, and you can feel it when you're there and when you actually observe what the people are going through around you. The level of ancestral trauma in these African tribes are severe. People have not healed yet. They have not gotten over these things that has happened to them, especially to their ancestors. Because you can imagine how many thousands of years Africans were being hunted down and caught to be slaves. It's like in their DNA that someone's coming to catch me. I'm not safe. It takes a long time to get through it. So I got my drop off here. Another funny story. I got dropped off around 10 p.m. around here somewhere. And there was a truck station, bus station. Truck driver said, "No, you sleep here, tomorrow morning you go." I said, "Are you sure I'm going to sleep?" He said, "Yeah, I'm sure." I said, "I'm not sure I'm going to sleep." Because every point you reach where there's a little bit of existence, there's drunkenness, there's speakers, there's madness, there's people going crazy. So again, I didn't sleep that night when I got dropped off there. I didn't sleep whatsoever. I had another confrontation with a man with a panga in his hand, threatening to chop me up. Simply because I asked if they could just be a little bit quieter. And I quickly noticed that it doesn't work. It doesn't work to talk, to try and explain yourself. People simply not going to understand. Because these people literally grew up in sound pollution, and it's nothing strange for them to be, never sleeping. And another realization I had, most of Africa, deep dark Africa, guys, these people are nocturnal. Most of these people are nocturnal. They sleep in the day, they wake up in the night. This is what's going on. It's like a party culture in a way. There's no regulations. There's no such thing as you're not allowed to play music after midnight. There's no policing. It's like Wild Wild West. There's no order. And this is something you can't escape when you're on the bicycle and you've got to find a place to sleep every night. You can't get away from it. There comes a point where you surrender and you've got to make the most of the situation. So I started cycling the Panhandle and I decided I'm not going to take any hitch. So I literally cycled the whole Panhandle all the way to Lake Bangwelu. I slept on the shores of Lake Bangwelu. It took me about 2 weeks. I cycled on 800 kilometers. And I carried on going around to Lake Mweru, spent about 2 nights on the shores of Lake Mweru. And the people in the villages were quite helpful to find me a campsite on the beach, away from the village. And that was quite cool. People quickly understood what I'm doing. And the beaches were not easy because these are rift lakes. Rift lake means you're going down a mountain several hundred meters, steep, until you get to where the lake is. And then you sleep at the bottom of the lake, and then it's back up again, up the rift. Each rift lake is like that. So it's always very hard work to go to these lakes, in and out. And I slept about 2 nights here, and then I had a plan. Our plan was I'm going to take the ferry through Lake Tanganyika. This was one of my fantasies, but it ended up not being a reality because at the time I reached Mpulungu and Lake Tanganyika, I went to the harbor and I met some people working with the ships in Lake Tanganyika. And they told me, okay, we can take you, but you're going to have to pay us $100 at least, and the Congolese visa, $100 at least. And I kind of decided already I'm not going to go into Congo because, trouble can happen in Congo. And we all know on the news what's happening in Congo. There's always wars going on. So I decided, okay, no, rather not. I'm not going to take the ferry through Tanzania. If I seeing that I've got no choice to, can't go into Congo. So you can see these lines. I've already done a lot of work in Tanzania already, and there wasn't much exploration for me to do in Tanzania. But let me, before I forget to mention, by the time I was in the Panhandle, I'd already made more than 20,000 Rand for my crowdfunding campaign. Because all this way through, every night in my tent, I've been documenting and writing my stories about what I'm going through. And a lot of people were sharing the stories, and money started to actually come in. When people realized I'm in the middle of Africa and I really got no way out, a lot of old friends, old family started, helping with the crowdfunding. And by the time I was in Sumbawanga is just here in the Rift Valley. I remember that night I was cycling around until midnight. I cycled 150 kilometers in one day from Mbala to Sumbawanga. It was the longest day of my cycling track. In Sumbawanga, I noticed, okay, my cash is looking good, and I made a big call while I was in Sumbawanga. And the call I made was I bought flight tickets from Kampala to Cairo and from Cairo back to Johannesburg. And that was already about 3 months into the journey. When I saw the cash was there, I went for it because I stayed true to my mission, which was about Cairo. I had to reach Cairo, do or die. And I had a lot of risks at play because Sudan is warfare. This whole place has been unstable for many years. And there was a lot of news also with Uganda and the border with Sudan and the border with Eritrea. No-go zones. So I didn't want to waste all my money and spend also 3 months again to reach all these areas and end up with no money again. And I already got all my donations, and the donations were done. There were no more donations to come, and I had to make this call whether I'm going to fly over or try and battle my way through war zones. And I made the call, and I played it safe. And I used my donations to get my flight tickets in order. And I hadn't even spent my money on my bicycle, because you still got to get your bicycle on the plane. And that's at least possibly another 3K extra to get your bicycle. And there I was phoning friends up in America. Please. I was begging people. Literally, I was not working. I was begging people along the way many times just for a little bit of money. And I also started becoming tired of begging people, and hence why I didn't follow through with the mission through Kenya and through Ethiopia. And I still want to get into Ethiopia because, you know, it's the most ancient land where the culture has never really changed. So I got my cash, I bought my tickets, and I was here in Sumbawanga. Ne? From Sumbawanga to Kigoma. Kigoma is around here. I took a bus, and you can see our road here. So here in Zambia, I hitch 900 kilometers, I ride 1,300 kilometers. Namibia, I ride 1,500, I hitch 900. Now these hitches were just straight highways that I didn't want to cycle. And by the time I got into Kigoma, my brakes not working anymore. Drive chain again, drive chain buggered for the second time. Not much gears to work on. My drive chain got buggered in Lake Bangwedu. There was a very granular quartzy sand that got into my chain. Those particles from the quartz buggered my drive chain up in less than 2 hours. So again, I was pretty screwed. And I got to Kigoma. I found bicycle technicians, and they put other brakes on for me. Rubbish brakes. Not like the disc brakes. They had to take my disc brakes off because there ain't no disc brakes up in Africa. They put these, it's like, they call it a drum brake. It's like this metal thing that's got rubber, and then it literally, the rubber goes into your axle. But it doesn't last. You brake a few times and then the rubber like cracks into, doesn't last. And a lot of my donations I also spend on fixing up the bicycle. This, I'll get to this story later. This should have never happened. This, well, let me just tell you guys straight now what happened. I'm in Uganda somewhere. So we're up here now, Lake Albert. I cycled straight to Lake Albert from a place called Fort Portal. I was in Fort Portal, I was in Kasese. But I'm going to stick with me because I'm going to jump now to different parts of the story. But when I reached Lake Albert, you saw some of the other pictures of the lake, beautiful pictures of the lake. There was a military checkpoint. These guys at the military checkpoint, they harassed me for up to 3 hours. They took my passport, they told me I'm not allowed to be here, they called the cops, they told me, no, I need to go 200 kilometers back to the capital of the district and get permission to be here. Wow. I'm like, what are you talking about? This is a public road, I've got my passport is stamped. What more do I need? I'm a free man, I can go wherever I want. They're like, no, you need a tour guide, you need documents, you need an itinerary. And the guy's looking at all my stamps, and he's like, why do you have all these stamps? And your passport is fake because you're white and you can't be from Africa. White people can't be from Africa, I'm sorry. You got a fake passport. He's calling us general. Yes, and I'm sitting there and I'm fuming. I'm ready now. I just wanna. But I'm keeping my cool. I'm telling my father, listen, these guys are holding me up. And then they talk to their general on the phone, and after a lot of arguments, they give my passport back. And like, okay, no, you go to the lake. Because I wanted to take a ferry. I was back from the lake. I wanted to take a ferry and skip some of the way because, you know, obviously you can move further north on the lake. And I get to the jetty site on the lake. I cycled many hundreds of kilometers to get there, and then suddenly at the jetty, the guys at the jetty call their supervisor. Supervisor tells them, no, he's not allowed to take the boat. He needs someone with him. They're all treating me like a baby. Like, I'm just this American clueless person and I need someone to show me the way. Not realizing that I've literally moved through the whole continent on my bicycle and I'll be fine. They prevented me to board this ferry. And I was very angry. I was protesting. I was swearing them. I was telling them, you guys are going to pay for this. I don't know how, but you guys are going to pay for this because you're blocking me, you're changing my trajectory, you're telling me to go back up a mountain, which is like 10 kilometers, serious work, to go back to where I come from, and I'm on a mission with limited resources that I need to carry on going. And I made such a big scene that they called the army to come and get me. And the police actually paid for this. So this guy on this motorcycle took me. I literally sat here with the bike with another guy in the front. And then they escorted me all 200 kilometers away from Lake Albert, all the way back to the middle of the country. And now I've got to explain to the police who I am and what I'm doing and this and that. Like, come on guys, like I'm African, just leave me alone, like let me do what I want to do. But Uganda was very tight. You can't just go anywhere in Uganda. They're telling me a story, no, the Congolese are going to kill me, I'm near the Congolese border. I'm like, when's the last time Congolese killed anyone? They're like, we don't know. You know? It's like, they're just following protocol. And then at the police station, they tell me I have to report at every police station wherever I go. I'm like, are you guys serious? Like, I've got my passport, I'm allowed to be in the country. Why do I got my stamp in the first place if you guys are treating me like that? I'm like, okay, cool. But luckily, when I was back in the capital, I went to the bicycle shop and I told the guy to weld my disc brake onto my wheel, and I managed to fix my disc brake on my hind wheel, which was pretty big for me at the time, because when I was over here in Tanzania, before I entered Uganda, I had a total brake failure coming down one of the steepest mountain passes of my life. Now, guys, this was the second time this happened to me. Total brake failure going down a mountain pass. Scary times. When I was here in Tanzania, I cycled into Burundi, which is here. I cycled 50 kilometers into Burundi. Guys, this is a Rift Valley. This is the toughest hills you can imagine on a bicycle. This is serious work. Every day serious work. And I get into Burundi at the border. At the border they tell me, oh no, you have to pay 50 US for your visa. I'm like, 50 US? They're like, yeah, 3-day visa. I'm like, 3-day visa? $50? You're telling me I have to get out of your country as fast as possible and pay $50 for it? I looked the guy in his eyes at the border. I told him, what your government is doing is not right. I can't come into your country, and I'm never coming back to your country. I'm not going to pay for this. Because $50, guys, you got your African currency, you end up losing a lot of money because the dollar is so strong in comparison. So why would I pay all my money, got no more money for food, and I'm in a country for what? Just to race out of the country and pay more in the country for an extra day. I was like, this is ridiculous, guys. They're charging all the trucks, all the South African trucks, they're charging $40, $50, $40. I said, I'm not a truck driver. I had to get out of the border again, back into Tanzania. Tanzania border fighting with me. They can't give me another stamp because I just stamped out. I'm like, here I am, guys. You're either going to take me or I'm going to live on your border. It's like, just take me back, come on. They speak a bit and offer, like, okay, here's your stamp. I go sleep in a warehouse somewhere on the border. Next day, cycle that 50 kilometers back into Tanzania. I'm in Tanzania, regrouping. I'm like, okay, what now? Okay, I don't have my yellow fever certificate yet. I cycle to the Rwandan border. I go and pay. How much did I pay? Yeah, at least then I had to go pay $50 for my yellow fever card. And the guy's like, take the injection out. I'm like, no, you're not going to give me that injection. I know what this yellow fever injection does to people. A lot of people tell me they got liver problems, this problem, that problem. I said, no. Don't inject me. Just give me the ticket. The guy look left, you look right, you see the money, you take them out. You give me my ticket. Like, thank you very much, because I knew I needed that ticket to enter Uganda. And there was no two ways about it. So I spent that money and I started cycling from Rusumo. It was Rusumo near the Rwandan border. I also decided no for Rwanda, because Rwanda is super expensive. It's twice as expensive as Tanzania. So I said, no, rather not. And also a lot more people, a lot more difficult to stealth camp, the environments like jungles, too rainy. So I did 2 detours here, Burundi no, Rwanda no, and then I started cycling, towards Tanzania or towards Uganda. All the way to the border. I get to the border of Uganda, and I'm like, and I cross this huge river, I can't remember the river. It's a big river separating Uganda and Tanzania. And the first day at the border, very, very nice. The lady said, okay, you should have done your visa over the internet. I was also surprised. There was another, how much? I think it was $70. Because all these African countries, they're all charging now for visas. Not like in the old days. You gotta go prepared. They just all want to make money from you. I buy my visa, and I get through the border already late in the evening. I don't know where I am. I just find a place in the bushes late. I cycle into the bushes. I find some random hiding spot. I sleep there for the night. Next morning I come back, and then I was like, shit, I'm dirty. I haven't had a bath in a long time. Let me go try have a bath in that river. The river that's separating the 2 borders. Big mistake. Big mistake to go back to that border. The next day at the border, there were a lot of army personnel hanging around. As soon as the whole of Africa is walking through this border, no questions asked, everyone's carrying their stuff, going to the river. The white men go to the river, big problem. White man not allowed to go to the river. The blacks can do what they want, the white man no. I walk past that border, I say, no guys, I've got my stamp already, don't worry. They're like, where are you going? Like, no, I'm going to the river. They're like, if you go to that river, we're going to lock you up. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just want to take a bath. I'm so dirty. Like, can you guys see? Like, I have dirt all over, stinking like a pig. I'm like, this is the only water around. I don't have money to pay for a hotel, go take a shower. I just want to go swim in the river. And suddenly, they're like, no, we're going to search you now. You're going to search me now. Yesterday I already crossed the border, you never searched me. Why are you searching me now? I'm not even crossing. They're like, shut the hell up, we're going to search you now. Next thing, guys, I don't know if you know how hard it is to pack, to bike pack and to load all your stuff. I had to unpack all my stuff. I was tired, and they literally taking my underwear, putting their hands in my underwear, putting their hands in my wallets, putting their hands all over. And I was so close to losing it while this was all happening. Everything in me was telling me, fight. I just stay calm, because I know there's no way to talk to these people. And they searched me. I had to load all my stuff again. Not allowed to take a swim. My morale was so low. It was one of the lowest points of my journey. And you can see while they're searching me, they're getting pleasure. They're getting pleasure with this man in anguish. I can see they're laughing. They're getting this sick pleasure. Mm-hmm. And I can feel this sick energy around me. And already I'm like, Uganda. I had this fantasy before Uganda, and now all my fantasies are breaking into a million pieces. It's not easy. And then cycle, I leave the border, I get to the main road, I'm tired, I'm out of it, no buses, no one's helping me hitch. I carry on cycling. I cycle that whole day, I sleep somewhere, the next day I get a short hitch, and then eventually I end up in Kasese. Now I went for Kasese. Kasese is just also around here somewhere. It's where the Rwenzori Mountains are located. The Rwenzori Mountains, highest mountain in Africa, higher than the big volcano there in Tanzania. What's it called? Kilimanjaro is not a mountain, guys, it's a volcano. So the Rwenzori is in the Rift Valley. It's the tallest mountain in Africa. I reach Kasese. Now by the time I reach Kasese, I'm starting to get malaria symptoms. I'm starting to go down with malaria. This malaria I got for the first time when I was somewhere in the Panhandle, Tanganyika, full of malaria. I got malaria there. I took the medication. I managed to get the symptoms down. The symptoms came back in Kasese. In Kasese, the first night I got in Kasese, money was kind of finished. Didn't know where to go. I was starting to get sick. Even had rashes all over my skin. I was sleeping somewhere at one of the famous hot springs, going towards the Rwenzori Mountains. And when I was at the hot springs, I negotiated with the people working there that they must make sure after midnight there's no parties going on here. But as you know, I couldn't get away from these parties. They were coming for me everywhere. And I'm sleep deprived, and I've got malaria symptoms. People don't understand how dangerous I'm on the verge of getting. You know how if you're being pushed with sleep deprivation every night, how you can you start going mad. And these guys working at the hot spring, they let people come in the middle of the night. People are drinking at the hot springs. I'm in my tent near the hot springs. I'm there shaking my head, and I'm like, this continent, what's going on? And these guys, and 2 o'clock in the morning, I walk to these guys, 10 guys in the hot spring having a party. I asked them, please guys, please keep quiet now. I want to sleep. They say, okay. I go to my tent, they carry on. They carry on until 3, until 4. Early in the morning hours. Only then they start leaving this place. And then when they walk past my tent, they made a mistake. They start verbally abusing me while they walk past my tent. When they had something to say to me, I literally ran out of my tent in my underwear, chasing them down like a rabid lion. You know, it's like, you fuckers! And I started running out of my tent with all this energy that I've been building up through Africa. These 10 guys were running for their lives. They ran for their lives. They did not even think 2 times a day. Couldn't get out of that gate fast enough. They were actually trampling over each other to get out of the gate. And I caught the last guy at the back of the queue. And the only thing I could do was grab a hold of him and push him as he was walking out. Because I had this energy in me that which I was suppressing for a long time. A lot of aggression, a lot of, telling myself to calm down, always holding this energy along the way. And I pushed this guy, and he picked up a big log and he wanted to hit me with it. And I just backtracked back to my tent. And then I was at my tent, and then the rest of them all came to that one guy who got pushed. And then they all started verbally abusing me from a safe distance, from about 30 meters away. You baboon! You don't belong here! Get out of our country! Whoa! And I stand in my tent and I'm like, come here, come say this to me right here. Come here, come here. I'm standing in my tent like Troy, like come say this to me right here. And they never came down. And I got back into my tent, and the next thing I see the praying mantis walking over my tent. I take the praying mantis out, I start calming down. Because praying mantis is my totem. It comes to me when I've reached a very crucial point in the journey. The next morning, the owner of the hot spring want to put charges on me that I've attacked someone. Because the guys apparently got one guy had a broken nose, apparently nothing to do with me. He told me, no, you need to pay for these charges, and I told him, no, I'm not going to pay nothing. You guys let crazy people come in here. I was just protecting myself, you know. And he said, okay. But that night when I was at the hot springs, I met Justin. And Justin was my savior. And he linked me up to his house in Kasese. He let me camp in his driveway while I was recovering from malaria. That's him. I was recovering from malaria for 2 weeks, 3 weeks with Justin there. Living in his driveway, in my tent, getting the right medication. And you can see I was a lot more skinnier that time. And this guy didn't need anything in return, because that's what always surprises you along the way. You know, you start thinking everyone is bad, and then suddenly you meet someone and you get your hope and your faith back in humanity. And this guy hosted me for 2 weeks, and eventually I had to leave him, and I finished another 700 kilometers, and I reached Lake Albert. They chased me from Lake Albert, but I went back to Lake Albert, and eventually out of Lake Albert, the Nile River. So from, you get Lake Victoria here, and some people, they visit the Nile River here. But it's not really the Nile River, because the Nile River here is first going into Lake Albert. And from Lake Albert, it becomes a solid river, and it goes all the way to Cairo. So when I reached Pakwach, which I never planned on reaching when I started, and I reached the Nile River, it was like the cherry on the cake for me. Because Nile River is the one that goes to Egypt, by the very old ancient river. And when I reached there, and I knew that, okay, the border's locked, can't really carry on. And I think I had another, 10 days to go until my flight left from Kampala to Cairo. And I spent about a week in Pakwach on this huge river. That's where the photos of the elephants comes from. The elephants were coming to my campsite, and I think I worked out that I cycled more or less 7,000 kilometers through the whole continent, and about 4,000 kilometers of hitchhiking. And you know, it wasn't just all a straight line, as you can see. Like I went through areas that I always wanted to go through. I visited Lake Mweru, Lake Pangwelu, which I never had visited before. Obviously, I lived on Lake Malawi before. I spent a bit of time on Lake Tanganyika. But I spent my last week in Pakwach, and eventually back in Kampala, and then I took my flight over to Cairo. And when I got to Cairo, with some of the bicycle technicians, that's Uganda, someone hosting me. But now we're going to come to some of the more cool stories about what happened in Cairo and what happened after Cairo, after moving to the continent. So the first thing I can remember when I first arrived in Egypt, the airport personnel were begging me for money, like beggars, like as if the staff is like going to Tambo, and the ladies are begging me for money at the staff counters, and like, this is weird. Like, what are all these people begging for? The soldiers outside the airport were begging me for money. I'm like, oh wow, this whole country full of beggars. And then, like, I got my taxi to Giza from the airport. I agreed on a price. The taxi driver drops me off. Suddenly he wants 200 more for the agreed price, and the guy's like threatening me, like he wants to beat me up because I'm not paying him. And I'm like, wow, these people are really mean. Egypt and full of nonsense. But on my way to Giza, deja vu. Everywhere I look, deja vu. Oh, feels like this has happened before. I feel like I've seen this before. And you can see how big the bricks are, like stones, pretty huge. But anyways, I reach the hotel, which was like $5 a night near Giza, very cheap. Egypt, very cheap. I meet a guy, I forgot his name. There's a black man from England. And interesting thing about this black man, he had the same life story as me. Myself, in my professional working environment, a lot of the times I've been the only white man surrounded by a lot of black men. And this black guy from England, he's been surrounded by mostly white people as the only black man. Going through the same kind of alienation that I'm going through in Africa, being the only white man, he being the only black man. So we immediately clicked, because we had kind of been going through the same thing, just the other way around. And beautiful connection. And this guy also healed a lot of my traumas going through Africa. The other best friend is an African, and the black guy is more white than me, and I'm more black than the white guy. So it's a beautiful healing connection. That's another Arab friend who took me to old Cairo. That's old Cairo, by the way. So this guy's name was Julian, the man from England. He went with me into Cairo, went to Giza, helped me with the pictures, and the next thing I'll go with Julian to Hurghada. We swim with the dolphins, very cheap to swim with the dolphins, you know. I end up in Luxor. This is all in 1 week. I go all the way to Luxor. I trace the Rift Valley from north to south. I go to Karnak Temple. And then my last day in Egypt, I went back to the pyramids and I went into the King's Chamber. Now, the King's Chamber is about 300 rands equivalent to get into. Not very expensive. And the pictures will be somewhere. And I'll never forget when I went into the King's Chamber, there was a lot of magic that happened in there. First of all, the people who happened to enter the chamber with me at the same time, I seem to recognize them from past life. I seem to just know these people, like we all had this appointment to meet each other in the King's Chamber. I met 2 ladies and another group of people, but they took pictures of me in the King's Chamber. I'm not sure if the pictures are there, but there's these granite walls, but the picture, when they took a picture of me, I happened to stand in front of these 2 wings that was carved in the walls, and wasn't on purpose. Only afterwards I saw the pictures, I noticed that there were these wings behind me. And another thing is, obviously I went into the King's Chamber. I'm a spiritual man, so by the time I was in the King's Chamber, I had been celibate for a long time. I had been fasting for a long time. I went there in the most purified state that you can imagine, and also being, through the whole continent on the ground. And in the King's Chamber, there was this big hole in the wall, and I could see people putting their arms into this wall and breaking down, like tearing up, breaking down, putting their arms into the wall. And I also tried it, and I put my arms into the wall. It's like a slot. It's almost like a key that you put your arms in. And when I put my arms into this wall, I started feeling goosebumps running from my feet, up my legs, up my hips, going all across my body, all the way to my crown. And I just carried on feeling all these waves going through me. And the only meaning I could make of it was this energy was purifying me. Because I saw people crying, like when you see people having spiritual experience, crying, lying on the ground, breaking down. People all around me were going through this. And there were also people making a circle around this slab, this granite slab, like holding hands. putting prayers in for the collective, and I was so blessed to be there and to be a part of it. And I was, for more than half an hour, I was in the King's Chamber. You're only allowed to stay 5 minutes. So I managed to pay the security guard a small bribe, and he allowed me to meditate next to, I was actually meditating on the other side of the corner for about 10-15 minutes, which is highly illegal, by the way, because when I tried to meditate outside the pyramids, the cops were shutting me down. They were like, no, that's illegal worship, you're not allowed to do that, stop doing that. Because I was meditating outside the pyramids after the King's Chamber. Because when you line up your spine and your crown, you can actually start tapping into the energy that's available there. But then they chased me when I was trying to meditate. They chased me, and after they chased me and I left the complex for the last time, it was my last day at the pyramids. After they chased me, I had this bitterness in me that, you know, you can't be free, you can't do what you like, everything is policed, everyone's telling me what to do. And when I felt this dark energy, a huge wind was suddenly gusting, and a big sandstorm came through the pyramids. Next thing you know, the whole Cairo disappears in a sandstorm after I left the King's Chamber. And that same night, I go to the airport. Another taxi driver is threatening me to the point that I feel like he's going to take my life, trying to extort me of money. Very rude people, very rude Arabs in Egypt, come across them all the time. Took my flight back to Joburg, and funny coincidences that I'm going to open up to now about the experience after Cairo. When I got back to Joburg, first thing my sister tells me, she's fishing at the airport, oh, the most serious snowstorm has moved through South Africa. And that was the time when the whole N3 was snowed up and no one could move between Johannesburg and Durban. It coincided at exactly the same time as the sandstorm and the time I entered the King's Chamber. A serious wave of weather came through. The lions were walking in snow in KZN, and no one ever seen pictures. And I think the highway was frozen up for 2 days or something, no one could cross. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I'll go back to Durban. And then I spent 2 weeks in Durban. The night before I leave Durban, there was this rumbling thunder for 8 hours straight, the one evening outside of my room, just above the atmosphere. Not just any kind of thunder. It sounded like a power plant, a soft thunder. Incessantly, didn't stop. I never heard thunder like this. Slowly, the whole night. Next day, I take a bus from Durban back to Sedgefield. So now I'm making a full circle from where I started my whole journey. That bus journey to Sedgefield floods, the whole coastline floods. In Port Elizabeth, the bus was almost water on the windows when I was moving through those areas. All the luggage compartments full of water, everything wet. Another wave of serious weather moved through. I spent 2 weeks in Sedgefield. I go back to Duiselsdorp. I go through that same mountain. When I moved through that same mountain, another ice storm hit me. I'll never forget, I was sleeping in a bakkie that night, cold bakkie, and it was ice cold and all these storms were pummeling through. And I get to Duiselsdorp. Spirit is telling me, go into Swartberg. Go walk into Swartberg. Kango Caves got a big reserve there by Oudtshoorn. I go walk from Duiselsdorp, I walk 30 kilometers into the mountains. I jump a 3-meter fence with my backpack, everything. I go and I scout. I'm going to scout that whole area. And I'm just going to pass this around because this is what I found when I did this. You can just pass this around, that you're all present for this. I want you to look at this just briefly, and I want you to look at the dimensions of this little rock. So when I got into Duiselsdorp, I went on that mission to Kango Caves. Spending 3 days in the mountains, I find this rock, very rare rock. And if you look at its dimensions, you'll understand when I say it's rare. It's shaped exactly like the King's Chamber, this rock. The exact same dimensions, right? And in ancient Egypt, this rock is called limonite. In ancient Egypt, limonite was used to connect to the goddess Isis, which was a very big god in those days, and people used this rock to connect to the Isis goddess, which is Mother Earth, which is Gaia. And this rock actually bled out of the center of the planet, and I miraculously found it in an area of 100 square radius, the only one. And this was like my little token of, like my little present, which manifested into my life after I got myself into the King's Chamber. And ever since I put it around my neck, I felt different. Very grounding energy, Mother Earth connection, and the dimensions, it's shaped exactly like the King's Chamber. Fast forward a few months later. Now, Graham, I'm not sure if you got that African map on my hand. You can check that out.
Yeah.
But this was now October, November, December came, solstice came. So I came back from Egypt in September. And by the time December came, I went to work for Solstice Festival at the Wellbeing Sanctuary. And on the 21st, we do a big dance-off ceremony around the fire. Everyone dances around the fire. Everyone plays drums. It's one of those nights where you lose it. You just put all your energy into a big celebration. And I think it's, you found it yet? I think it's in the after folder.
Could be.
But anyways, on the night of the 21st, I played a drum like a hooligan until my hands bled. Literally, both my hands were bleeding at the end of that night. I couldn't even think about all the beautiful women waiting around the fire, who's going to take them home. I look at my hands, I'm like, no, not going to happen tonight. Guys, I'm a walkabout, I walk around. I've had no real relationships in my life so far. This is a sacrifice I made. But I played this drum and I went back to my tent and I was so tired like a bushman. You know when a bushman dances around the fire and they pass out? Now I want you to look at this. This is a drum burn on my hand. And I want you to see how exactly it is shaped, like Africa. I want you guys to see this and to admit that there's no coincidences.
There's another one.
And there's the cube.
Right.
There I traced it with a pen, thank you. And you can see I'm a bit perplexed in the photo as well because I couldn't believe it myself. And let me finish my story. That night when I passed out, I went into a very deep sleep. Like I never really go that deep into sleep. I was gone. Between the hours of 2 and 6 a.m., I was gone. I don't know where I was, but I played myself into another dimension with the drum. That morning, my one friend told me, listen, my brother, I felt my combi shaking. Combi was shaking. I was sitting in my combi was shaking. I'm like, are you for real? Pick up my phone. That same morning, the biggest earthquake hit South Africa since Toebach. It was centered in Brandvlei, but the whole western seaboard could feel this earthquake, all the way to Cape Town, all the way to Wilderness. The whole Cape Fold belt, the whole Cederberg was shaking that morning after the solstice festivities. And this, by chance, the earthquake happened the same time this shape appeared on my hand from playing the drum. And how can you make up a story like that? You can't make up a story like that. And for me, this all feels like it's connected. The map on my hand, my journey from Cape to Cairo, the playing the drum around the fire, and the earthquake. Because personally, I've spent time in all these lands and all these mountains, and on my own 2 feet, you know, on the bicycle, not hovering around in a car. And I made the whole full circle from Cairo all the way back to where I started, did the big ritual around the fire, and the planet speaks to you. The planet speaks to you if you have the awareness. You don't take things as coincidence. And the guy told me the can't be shaking. I wake up in the morning, I look at my hand, there's the map. I'm like, I can't make this up. This is something else, and it's like a movie in a way, and that was like full circle for me, and that's my magical story regarding the miracles and the magic that happened, you know, after I did this journey and connected where the pyramids are, and even before the pyramids, after the pyramids. But my whole intention was just to reach the pyramid and to get the download, because you guys know, I know that in the ancient world, the ultimate location or the ultimate destination for pilgrimage, for any saint, for anyone who wanted to do spiritual work, go to Cairo. The mystery schools are there. Large parts of the life of Jesus was in Cairo. Hermes Trismegistus was in Cairo. Pythagoras was there. Who's the other guy? They were all there. And everyone says that when you go to Cairo, the download that you get is the law of one, and the open heart and the ability to become one with everyone in any experience. You get a very special download there, and I believed I did get my download. That's why I went there. I spent a bit of time in Cairo if you ever can. Before I was there for 1 week. By the end of that week, I didn't even have to sleep anymore. That's how high the vibration is there. People don't know half the story, what's going on there. Just the other day, it came out with the huge structures underneath, the spirals that they anchored into the planet there. And I can't say enough about that place. If you can ever go there, please go there. There's a lot of good energy available for healing at the pyramids. That's for sure. When I left that tunnel, after I got out of the chamber, I felt reborn. You know how Christians like to tell you, I'm reborn, I feel like I'm reborn. I felt like I exited those pyramids as a different man, and now I'm here to share this medicine wherever I am, wherever I go. And I can also feel like I've achieved what I had to during this lifetime. Maybe I can achieve anything bigger, but for me this was like the ultimate achievement. And guys, thank you for sharing.